Hello, students. We will be talking about the character of Macbeth in this lecture. There is no doubt that Macbeth is a tragic hero. The flaw which brings his downfall is ambition. He is a very brave soldier, he is a leader, and he possesses all the virtues that a hero should contain. But his ambition is the flaw which brought his downfall in the play. He has all the grandeur which Shakespeare's tragic heroes possess, and he wins our sympathy also, which generally the tragic heroes excite in us when they are overtaken by their ruin. The defect in Macbeth's character is his excessive ambition only, his excessive desire to attain the crown which the witches have prophesied for him, but which he has undoubtedly been secretly cherishing in his own heart also. The destruction of Macbeth may be said to reflect the fall of Satan himself, and the play is full of analogies to make this parallel very clear. Like Satan, Macbeth is also aware from the very beginning the evil that he has in himself, that embraces him, and like Satan, he will not renounce his moral choice once he has made it. The evil in him is symbolized by his ambition to become the king, and it was Satan's sin also. Shakespeare treated ambition as the aspect of pride, as a rebellion against the very will of God and against nature. The ambitious man always tries to rise higher on the great chain of being than the place to which God has appointed him. In this effect, the ambitious man tends to break the bonds which tie him to God and to rest of the humanity with his morality. This is exactly what happens in the case of Macbeth also. When we meet Macbeth for the first time, we already know him to be military general of extraordinary power. As a warrior who has covered himself with glory in putting down a rebellion and defeating the foreign invaders. The accounts given by the bleeding sergeant and by Ross and Angus depict the great personal courage and daring bravery of Macbeth on the battlefield. Thus, he is a man who inspires fear and admiration all around. Duncan, the King of Scotland, refers to him as worthy cousin and noble Macbeth. But the manner in which Macbeth reacts to the prophecies of the witches is very clear indication that he has secretly been aspiring to become a king. On hearing that he will become the king, he gives a start, and in the words of Banquo, seems to fear things that do sound so fair. When one of the prophecies made by the witches is fulfilled by the conferment of the title of Thane of Cawdor upon him, Macbeth, in an aside, he speaks to himself and regards it as a happy prologue. Prologue means the beginning. Happy prologue to the fulfillment of the next prophecy, namely that he will become the king. The thought of kingship so engrosses him that in an aside he clearly reveals the means which he have occurred to him for attaining that position. In this aside, he speaks of the horrid image which makes his hair stand on end and which makes him firm-hearted and his ribs knock. Obviously, he is thinking of assassinating, killing the king himself. And this is the only way, in his eyes, to become the King of Scotland. However, Macbeth has a conscience and a very strong conscience. अंतरात्मा उसकी बहुत मजबूत है, ऐसा शुरू में हमको देखने को मिलता है. सो ही ट्राइज टू डिसमिस द थॉट ऑफ असैसिनेशन एंड इन अनदर साइड when he is talking to himself, he says that if he is destined to become the king, he would attain that position without any effort on his part, just as he has become Thane of Cawdor automatically. The thought of the kingship he is not able to dismiss from his mind, because a little later he asks Banquo to think upon what the witches have said so that they can discuss this subject afterwards. It is noteworthy that the idea of committing a crime, treason against the king and murder of the king himself, has already occurred to Macbeth, though he is able to push it into the background for the time being. The moment at which he speaks an aside about the horrid image may be regarded the moment of the birth of evil in him. ये वो समय है जिस वक्त उसके मन मस्तिष्क में क्राइम जन्म ले चुका है. Although he becomes successful in suppressing this idea for a time being. And this continues in his mind. Macbeth returns home, and his wife also speaks to him of the assassination of Duncan as the means to attain the kingship. He shows a non-committal attitude by saying, "We will speak further." This means that he is in a state of indecision right at that moment. A little later, he reveals in a soliloquy what is going on in his mind. He considers the contemplated crime both from the practical point of view and the moral point of view. So far as the practical side is concerned, Macbeth thinks of the sad consequences which always overtake an evildoer. This even-handed justice commends the ingredients of poisoned chalice to our own lips. This is the dialogue that he speaks in his soliloquy. From the moral point of view, he realizes that Duncan is his kinsman, his guest, and his king also, whom he should defend rather than murder. He knows this. Macbeth also thinks of the deep sympathy that people will feel for Duncan if he is killed. This soliloquy is very important in understanding the true character of Macbeth. It is also true that he at this time fears the disastrous consequences of the killing of Duncan, but he should not underestimate. We cannot underestimate the force of evil which is there prevalent in his mind. The upshot of the soliloquy is that he tells his wife, "We will proceed no further in this business." After evaluating pros and cons, he reaches to this conclusion for a time being. At this stage, Lady Macbeth plays a pivotal role, a very important role. She taunts him on his lack of courage and on not loving her well enough to be able to carry out a task which he had undertaken. She speaks to him with such intense feelings and she uses such forceful language that Macbeth is overwhelmed and agrees to carry out the task. Macbeth is simply unable to resist the temptation on the tide of his wife's arguments and words. There is no doubt that his own ambition also has a substantial part in breaking the resistance to the thought of crime. But Lady Macbeth's influence cannot be underestimated here. There is no doubt that Lady Macbeth's powerful assault on his mind and heart makes him commit this crime. The murder of Duncan is the first and most serious step towards Macbeth's self damnation. By murdering Duncan, Macbeth has strangled his conscience. However, his conscience अंतरात्मा को कहते हैं, तो his conscience does not die with the murder of Duncan. Macbeth still have returned to the path of righteousness. He could have returned to the path of righteousness, but both his ambition and his wife stand in the way of any moral recovery. Even when he was on the verge of entering Duncan's bedroom in order to kill him, his conscience opposed the contemplated action by showing him a visionary dagger. Dagger कहते हैं खंजर को, उसको imagination में दिखता है, and that dagger makes him realize to the fullest possible extent the extreme horror of the deed that he was going to commit in some moments to come. His soliloquy, "Is this a dagger which I see before me?" clearly shows the working of his conscience at that time. However, the voice of his conscience at that time could not stop him from accomplishing the horrible task. His ambition and the promise he had given to his wife had the better of his conscience, but the conflict was there, and that becomes the source of pity for him. Does the conscience become silent when the murder has been committed? Macbeth's inability to utter the word Amen at the end of the brief prayer that two other men have offered, his hearing a voice asking him to sleep no more because he has already murdered sleep. These are signs of his keen sense of guilt, which makes Macbeth unhappy at that time. He is unable to go back to Duncan's bedchamber in order to smear the daggers and the faces of the guards with Duncan's blood. The sound of a knocking at the gate appalls him, gives him torture. The blood on his hands, he feels, cannot be washed away by all the waters of ocean. His blood, on the contrary, can redden all the water of ocean. He says this. In short, Macbeth experiences acute torment just after committing the murder. Augment his fear, augment his conscience, the moral conscience. When the murder has been discovered, Macbeth makes a speech which, though intended as a formal expression of grief, actually comes from the very depth of his heart and shows that he is already feeling overcome by the sense of futility of human existence. All is but toys, renown and grace is dead. ऐसा वो बोलता है. Having taken the road of this self-damnation, like Satan, Macbeth is now unable to stop. Realizing the danger from Banquo and thinking of the prophecy that the throne will ultimately go to Banquo's sons, Macbeth hatches a conspiracy against Banquo and tries to kill Banquo and his son. Banquo is killed, however, son of Banquo is saved. In the murder of Banquo, Macbeth's wife has no share whatsoever. This murder has been planned by Macbeth on account of the terrible dreams which have been shaking him every night. In other words, Macbeth's second crime results from his resentment over the prophecy about the crown going to Banquo's sons. But this crime causes him an even greater distress and misery than he had experienced when Banquo was alive, because Banquo was his friend. And when he killed him, his conscience got a second jolt. Macbeth imagines that the ghost of Banquo is looking at him in the accusing manner in the royal banquet, where all the Scottish nobles are present. Thus, Macbeth's troubled conscience makes him see a hallucination. Hallucination कहते हैं भ्रम को. Hallucination similar to the visionary dagger which he had seen just before the murder of Duncan. Macbeth is at this time completely unnerved by the sight of Banquo's ghost and almost gives himself away. Although Macbeth seeing the ghost of Banquo shows that his conscience is still very alive yet, only a little later he tells his wife about his apprehensions with regards to Macduff, and also tells her that he will go the Weird Sisters the very next day in order to know something more about his future. At this time, he also says that he is as yet a novice in crime, but that he will soon become hardened. He also feels that now it is too late for him to retrace his footsteps because he has already gone too far on the road of evil. Thus, now Macbeth consciously and on his own initiative goes to the witches for consultation. It is true that his conscience will speak to him, but now he has already gone beyond any possibility of a moral or a spiritual redemption. His going to the witches shows that he is already doomed and he has already surrendered his soul to the evil forces. He not only goes to the witches but also puts an implicit trust in them, accepting their promises and assurances as genuine. His first act after returning from the meeting with the witches is to order the slaughter of Macduff's family. It is an act which is almost shocking to us and which shows that Macbeth is now a ruthless and unscrupulous criminal. After this, Macbeth's moral descent is swift and sure. He becomes a most despotic and tyrannical king, so that the people of Scotland now witness a reign of terror. Macbeth sups full with horrors, to such an extent that even the news of his wife's death leaves him unmoved. He also now realizes the futility of his life, comparing himself to the yellow leaf of autumn, and his only concern now is personal safety, of which he feels confident because of the promise of the witches that no human born will be able to kill him. Soon he discovers the equivocation of the witches' prophecy and finds that Birnam Wood moves to Dunsinane. He cannot rely on the other assurances now. Finally, he meets his end at the hands of Macduff, who was not born of a woman in the normal sense. It was a cesarean birth that Macduff got. So, in one important particular, Macbeth differs from other Shakespeare's tragic hero like Hamlet and Othello. The other heroes do not lose their admiration till the end. The reason for this is that their essential nobility of character does not suffer any diminution at any stage. The result is that when they meet their deaths, our pity for them is at its maximum. And we have a tremendous sense of waste at the loss of such precious material. As for Macbeth, he certainly remains some of our sympathy, but he loses our admiration after the middle of the play because of his criminal deeds. When Macbeth meets his end, we feel that poetic justice has been done, and we experience mixed emotion of pity and relief. The downfall of Macbeth simply means that retribution has taken over, but in the other cases we feel that punishment is out of all proportion to the guilt. Macbeth is a hero who afterwards becomes a villain, but that is not the case with other tragic heroes of Shakespeare like Hamlet, Othello, and Lear. Thank you very much. You should read more. I will provide you the PDF notes on Macbeth's character, and you can delve deeper into the character of Macbeth because it is one of the most ambitious plans of Shakespeare to present ambition as a vice in human nature. That's all for today. Thank you very much.